All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another rendition of Beyond Identity's webinars. Today, we are talking about how to stop lateral movement in on-prem applications. We know that they're more difficult to secure than cloud apps that have a lot of modern identity defense systems. So this is going to go on about how to extend modern identity security to legacy protocols, specifically with CrowdStrike's new ITDR and Beyond Identity. So first we'll get into a round of introductions and then go straight into the meat of it. So hello, I'm Kasha. I'm a product marketing lead at Beyond Identity. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mike Schweitzer. I'm a product manager here at Beyond Identity, and I focus on our integration strategy.
Awesome.
So really what we're talking about here is on-prem infrastructure and legacy applications. We are Beyond Identity. We generally provide a modern, authentication and identity solution and defense solution for our customers. But not every solution tends to support the modern protocols that identity-based solutions often support. So this is all kinds of things like SSH, VPN, things that are part of your IT infrastructure, any kind of legacy system or home-built resources, any kind of file shares or databases that you have on-prem, and then a lot of virtual desktop and remote desktop type solutions tend to use more legacy protocols. And this is something that when we talk to customers, we hear a lot about these sort of gaps in coverage for modern identity protocols and solutions. If you have a phishing-resistant MFA solution, if you have something that uses SAML or OIDC, you tend to have to leave some of these resources out of the purview of your identity systems. And, that is contributing to security challenges for our customers. It makes it more challenging for customers to cover, the entirety of resources. And then, especially when it comes to compliance and having to prove and show to auditors that your entire infrastructure or anything that's critical is covered, having these little gaps here and there actually contribute to really serious challenges for customers. So this is kind of the types of resources that we set out to solve with this partnership with CrowdStrike.
Exactly. And not only is it difficult to secure, but we know how easy it is for attackers to bypass these legacy protocols. Just from some lessons from previous attacks we've seen in the wild from Microsoft and Change Healthcare. So with Microsoft, there was a phishing campaign for a number of years that was targeting organizations using ADFS. More than 150 organizations were affected, specifically in education, healthcare, and government. And attackers exploited weak defenses in high volume legacy environments to move laterally and escalate attacks for financial gain. And with Change Healthcare, which is owned by UnitedHealth, they ended up actually having to pay a ransom of $22 million. 100 million individuals' data was compromised because an attacker accessed a Citrix remote access portal lacking MFA eventually was able to move laterally and deploy ransomware. So we can actually see here how vulnerable these protocols can be because they typically lack these modern identity defense systems. And so it really begs the question of what if attackers had nothing to steal? A lot of these protocols use MFA that uses passwords or push notifications that attackers can easily bypass, which leads to phishing, MFA bypass, lateral movement where credentials are exposed. But removing them actually makes these attacks impossible. And it's now possible through CrowdStrike ITDR and Beyond Identity, which Michael will talk a little bit more about how that actually works together to reach that final result of eliminating credential-based attacks in on-prem apps.
Yeah, absolutely. Our solution for Beyond Identity is all about having a device-bound, hardware-backed, phishing-resistant, multi-factor authentication solution. And traditionally, that's something that usually has to flow through, modern identity protocols like OIDC and SAML, which is most commonly associated with your SaaS applications. CrowdStrike can actually install an agent directly on a domain controller that's associated with Active Directory, or tied to any of your legacy applications or any of your on-prem applications. CrowdStrike then detects whenever there's an access request coming in to your on-prem applications using those protocols, and then inserts the Beyond Identity authenticator into that user flow. And the advantage there is really that CrowdStrike has the detection side of this, and then we have the verification and device posture, and using those sort of a device bound immovable passkey that is attached to the hardware of the device, that really verifies that the user is who they say they are, and the device follows the attributes that are required for your organization. So CrowdStrike has that detection mechanism, and then we have the verification mechanism. When you put them both together, you're now inserting that more modern identity verification and authentication into your more legacy applications that didn't traditionally support that.
Exactly. And as the tagline goes, CrowdStrike stops breaches, but Beyond Identity prevents them at initial access. So now we get to see it in action. Let's share your screen, Michael.
Sure thing. Okay, so I will start in the CrowdStrike Falcon console here. When you have the identity protection module installed, you have the ability to add policies that detect certain types of access and then promote an identity verification action there. So this is the policy builder. I'm going to build a simple policy here. We're going to call it Beyond Identity and Legacy Applications. And so for the trigger of this particular policy, it's going to be access. So when someone attempts to access a certain type of resource, this policy is going to be triggered. We're going to start just without any template. This is going to be a very simple policy, but it's going to protect a large section of your infrastructure. There is some pre-configuration that you have to do here. You have to configure Beyond Identity as an OIDC provider, and you also have to install the CrowdStrike Falcon agent on your domain controller. But once all that is set up, building policies is super simple. If you want to get into more detail on that, we're happy to provide you with a more in-depth demo. But for this policy, all we're going to do is we're going to prompt for an identity verification using the Beyond Identity connector. When the policy triggers, we want it to trigger based on the protocol. So I'm going to select protocol here. And the best thing to do really is just to hit select all, because in this case, you're going to trigger the Beyond Identity authentication whenever one of these legacy protocols are used. But for the sake of making it easy to read, I'm going to pick Kerberos, LDAP, SMB, and NTLM. This covers a really wide variety of different resource access. The list we showed in on the previous slides, anything from a remote desktop to VPN to any kind of activity that flows through your Active Directory. There's a few different monitoring rules you can put in here, but this is really all that you need for the authentication to actually prompt and send the users down a modern MFA path whenever they try to access these legacy resources. So I am going to hit save, and it's going to ask for a little bit more tuning, but we're just going to hit save anyway. And now the policy is in place in our system. So what policy that's the CrowdStrike side of the policy. That's where CrowdStrike is going to detect a certain type of access and then go to us, go to Beyond Identity to actually run through an identity verification process. I want to show in the Beyond Identity console what that actual process is going to look like. So we have our own access control policy here. This checks for CrowdStrike extended attributes as well as the existence of our phishing-resistant passkeys during that authentication attempt. So I can just take a look at this policy here. But the way that this is going to work, this is tailored to the Mac operating system. I'm using a Mac currently, but you can, there's all kinds of different CrowdStrike attributes that you can use here. So we can check for the existence of certain user groups in your directory. We can make sure that this happens during the authentication rather than the enrollment of the credential, and then we can check in addition to attributes that come from CrowdStrike Falcon, we can also verify operating system attributes that come in directly from our authenticator. And so in this case, we can verify that antivirus is turned on, that there's a firewall enabled, file vault is turned on. This is all the sort of Mac OS requirements for doing this activity. And then within CrowdStrike, we can actually check a huge number of attributes within CrowdStrike Falcon to make sure that your device is in compliance with anything that your EDR is checking. This is not a remediative response in the way that the CrowdStrike solution generally works. This is something that we're checking proactively whenever you attempt to log in. We'll make sure that all these attributes are put in place in the right way before we let people into the front door. You can also check a wide variety of other integrations that we support. So Jamf, for example, you could, if you have an MDM, if you have something else configured for these devices, you're able to check additional attributes for this device. So in this policy, we're checking CrowdStrike attributes. Excuse me, we're checking Jamf attributes, and we're checking just OS level settings that we detect within the authenticator. So all of this policy is going to run every single time that somebody attempts to use one of the protocols that I specified in the CrowdStrike Falcon policy. So in this case, I'm going to show a quick demo of what that looks like. This is just a little video recording that we have, but this is an attempt to use remote desktop, which uses the NTLM protocol. So you go through the normal login experience with remote desktop, you type in the local username and password for the device. But then once you're entering this authentication process, it actually prompts the Beyond Identity authenticator to make sure that you have the passkey visible, passkey on your device, that you meet all of those standards that I showed in the policy. And then once all that is approved, then you actually allow the access into RDP. So that's kind of the complete story here. We showed the access control policy in Beyond Identity. We showed the policy for when that policy gets run in CrowdStrike Falcon, and then we can show the actual outcome of that, which is a very streamlined passwordless login experience through remote desktop.
That's awesome. Yeah, teams can really ensure that they know with confidence that the right users on the right device, on a healthy device, are accessing their on-prem applications. And there's a lot of benefits that unlocks for security and IT teams. Number one being zero account compromises on on-prem apps. There are no credentials to steal, and therefore there's really nothing to bypass or get around in order to access on-prem apps. And similarly, no zero lateral movement from credential abuse, because there are no credentials that can be shared and reused throughout various applications. It secures legacy protocols without added user friction. As Michael was showing, it's the same process of username, password, and then it checks the health of the device and if it's the right device through that passkey. But it's not like they're reaching for a phone for a push notification or a one-time code that adds typically user friction. And lastly, it extends your existing CrowdStrike investment and signals to block access attacks. So the signals that you're already spending on with CrowdStrike can be used in access policies. So if full disk encryption is turned off, that is something that can prevent someone from logging into your on-prem apps. And also, if there are any crowd credits that you have in your marketplace, that is something that can be used towards Beyond Identity. So check that out. We're on the CrowdStrike marketplace with some more information, and you can get started there, or go to beyondidentity.com/demo for a personalized demo. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was really, really helpful. Please give us feedback anytime. We respond to any emails or any requests for more information. We'd love to show you more. So thank you again.
Thanks a lot.